The retreat is kind of that spiritual detox to get away and say, I really need you, Jesus. I mean, that's been a huge thing for me on Ignatian retreats. That's part of the biggest part of an Ignatian retreat is to realize my need for Jesus. Welcome back to Transfiguration's podcast. We are Transfiguration in Oakdale, Minnesota. And Transfiguration exists to bring all those in the East Metro to Christ, the source and summit of our daily and eternal lives. I am Justin Cordum, Director of Parish Formation, and I am with Father Brian Lynch today. He has just returned from a retreat.
Yes.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yes, I was. Retreat is not defeat. Retreat is not defeat. Retreat is not defeat.
All right. I think that's the topic of the podcast.
That's what we were.
And it'll also be our banter. It'll be everything of this week because it's like what's happening in your life and maybe we can relate it to how you can bring all those in the East Metro to Christ by going on retreat.
I think it's significant. I think I like to assume that everyone is exactly like me. I'm going to try not.
Well, the world would be better if we were.
Oh,
I mean, right?
Thank you. That's very nice. So we are in a spiritual battle. We are in a spiritual battle, principally for our own salvation, because God chose not to make us robots and save us against our will. And so we have a significant part to play in getting to where we want to go. And we have a very powerful enemy who would like us to end up in a very uncomfortable place that we really don't want to be.
Yeah, and he's not only powerful, but he's also sinister and cunning.
Yeah,
and he can allow us to feel comfortable in our garbage.
I think that's true. And I just said to somebody recently, the spiritual life is it's a battlefield littered with mines. I mean, there are so many different ways we can be deceived, and so we want, at times, I think it's significant, and I think just in conventional terms, we can just think very practically in terms of amounts of time, not even necessarily the quality of time or what particular events have transpired, but over a certain amount of time, it's time to evaluate, how is this going? Am I getting where I want to be? And we might have different specific goals, or really broadly we could say holiness. That might be difficult to measure so abstractly, but we can pin it down to some practices, my celebration and practice of the sacraments, my habits of prayer, my habits of evangelization, my habits of penance, my habits of service to others, especially the less fortunate, and to really evaluate. And I think that's some of the reason why retreat is not defeat. I think that many of us, maybe men more than women, aren't able to multitask particularly well, so we can't very well be engaged in the battle, in a particular battle, while we're simultaneously evaluating how the war is going. Right.
Yeah.
So I think the retreat is a tactical component of warfare, where maybe more conventionally, retreat is, I recognize I'm losing this particular battle and I'm taking losses, and and so withdrawing and sort of conceding, okay, this is not going well. Let's regroup. Let's think this through and figure out. I really do want to win the war. How is that done? How will I do that?
Yeah, I think these are all great observations for a sane person. You know, I mean, a sane person, when they want to go visit their family on vacation or whatever else, they set something as a destination and they tactically try to get there in a reasonable amount of time. But I also think that a lot of us in our spiritual life either don't, maybe we don't even think there is a destination.
Yeah.
And I think certainly a lot of people don't think there is like landmines, like, Father, I'm kind of fine.
Yeah.
Father, I'm fine without a retreat.
Yeah.
And I've heard that many times, and I've probably heard it many times in my own head as well.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah.
And
this is maybe a slight tangent or going on but I think at times what I can say for myself, and I would say for other people in my life, I would say, maybe I don't need a retreat in a certain sense, or maybe you don't need a retreat for yourself, but within my set of responsibilities as a priest, all of you listening, all you have taken the time to listen to this podcast, you deserve that I go on a retreat, because I have to get my act together. Because if I don't, I can do a lot of spiritual damage or not do my work as effectively. And I can say the same that I believe about other people in my life who have responsibilities toward me. I deserve that they would go on retreats, because I want them to have their act together, and so that they can lead and help me. So I think I could very easily square that on a particular demographic that I'm concerned about, which is the fathers of our families, especially those with school-age children. Your children, your wife deserves that you do the hard work and the sacrifice that's required to make a retreat and get your, I won't use the expletive now that I'm starting to get fired up, but get it together. Get your act together.
Yeah.
Because without some of these things, you will just keep drifting. You will just go with the culture. And that's what will happen. Like, it's, you just imagine getting in the St. Croix River at Taylor's Falls, and you just put your boat in there. You'll think you're not. I'm not doing anything. I'm not paddling. I'm not. But you'll end up in Stillwater, and you haven't. And that's like the life.
Probably not in very good shape. Yeah. You're going to hit some rocks and stuff.
Yeah. So the culture is constantly working to drag us down, and if we're not making those concerted efforts to fight the culture, then we are going to go with the culture. And if we don't take time to evaluate, I am expending this energy, but is it working? Is it actually getting me where I need to be? So yeah, that's some ideas about.
Well, I'm glad you went there, because I was going to go there too. I think some people think retreats are for like those religious people to be more religious, but it's for I completely agree. I was going to use even the same words. You owe it to your wife. Mm-hmm. You owe it to your kids to go to Mass, to pray every single day, and at least annually to get away from everything and go on retreat.
Yeah. So I'll cut open a vein. I think I went on retreat at Prior Lake Franciscan Retreat Center in Prior Lake. I'm not being paid for this endorsement, but what I liked about one of the qualities that I really enjoyed about it was that it was not overly scheduled. What I think the temptation for a lot of retreats and similar events is there's those who are providing it feel that they need to really deliver, so those who are receiving it are asked to drink from a fire hose. It's just too much content, too much head work, not enough time for it to get to the heart and to really start to impact one's life. There's so much of it, it just gets all stuck up at the head level. And
then you go home like confused.
Well, yeah,
sometimes
you
go home like, oh man.
Yeah, well, it's so much I just can't do it. I mean, it can be overwhelming. So, my experience at Franciscan was it was not overly scheduled, so that had plenty of time to be in my room there on my own and be quiet and reflect and just pay attention to what's bubbling up, what is in my soul, what is there that needs to be addressed, and to recognize those things and to take the time of reflection and gain insights and then sort of strategize about what to do about it, what to do differently, right? So I have an attachment to some things that and they're excessive. I have an attachment to baseball memorabilia, and it's too much. It's unhealthy. Matthew Kelly wrote a great line in one of his books that I really did like. He said something like, "You can never get enough of things that you don't need." Right? Yeah. How true that. It's like a logical. It's a truism. You can never get enough of things you don't need because
there's always more.
There's always more stuff that you don't need, and you don't need it anyhow.
I need Babe Ruth socks. I really need his socks.
Yeah,
someone found them.
Yeah, I need Babe Ruth socks. Exactly. I mean, and I can get really, I'll become aware that Babe Ruth socks exist, and I'll get really interested in what it would take to acquire them, and so much wasted time and energy on, and so that was good, because as I'm living my life, it's going to be hard for me to recognize. I mean, I might recognize it, but to sit with it, to be uncomfortable, to come to terms with, yes, this is wrong. I need to come to the conviction that, all right, Jesus is asking me to do this, and then to come up with some practical ways that I'm going to change my behavior. That was one example of something that I think in the course of the retreat, I had the time and the space and the energy to sort of take that on and to own it too for myself, to really own it and feel convicted about it, and do something about it. And that is going to, that hopefully, I believe that resolution the payoff is going to be, some people would make, we squandered a day concerned. Well, if I'm true to this, I'm going to save time and energy and resources over the next year or more, because I'm going to have put this in its proper place, right? And so I guess that's, to me, is an example of something, a way in which that retreat is valuable.
Yeah, that's a great example, because you can't, you perceivably could do that in the process of your daily life, but it's really unlikely. It's highly unlikely, because you might get this kind of like, well, I don't feel comfortable with where I'm at with this right now, but you need the time away. You need the time away from the busyness of your life. You need the time away sometimes from cell phones and emails and other responsibilities. And you need the space to make a resolution and to maybe even start that resolution. Okay, when I go back, this is what's going to happen. Now, can I ask if you had was this a directed retreat or was it self-directed?
It was. I think it's what it was. It was called silent. We weren't to be talking to one another, and I think you'd call it preached. I think so. Yeah. There were presentations or conferences. There was an opportunity for spiritual direction. So I did talk to two different spiritual directors on in the course of this, the 3 days. So it had a component, I suppose, of directed.
Yeah, and so before we get into the practicals of where to make a retreat, how to make a retreat, what places to contact, I probably should share my own experience with retreat as well. I've done a number of them, and I like, getting away. I haven't had a consistent spiritual director in a while, and I probably should. That's probably something I should, be going to confession to the same person each time. It's very, I find it very beneficial. I haven't done it for a long time. I just go to the French laundromat of St. Louis, King of France, which is fine. I'm going to confession, once a month. However, there's some benefit to diving deeper with a person that can actually get to know you a little bit better. I kind of prefer, I like getting away to Pacham. I'm kind of a Pacham and Terrace person for at least a weekend. And I haven't done more than a weekend in a long time, and probably should. I know a number of guys that do de Montreville. I think that's just a weekend as well, right?
I think so.
Yeah. And I think those are kind of directed, preached retreats too, and there's an opportunity for confession and individual direction. And some of those are, I definitely want to talk to someone. I wouldn't encourage someone to just go on a kind of just getaway retreat. Pacham and Terrace is great. However, you need to talk with someone about it later. I think that's essential. I think it's really difficult to just, it's almost impossible to self-evaluate, 100%. You can do a lot of it. You can do a lot of great, good, deep dive. But I've found that the majority of the benefit is just saying it out loud to someone else. And then all of a sudden, either I will get my own answers to my thoughts and prayers and confusions, or the director will ask some very difficult questions that will help me answer those things as well. And the best directors I've had haven't answered my questions. They don't say well, stop being an idiot, or stop doing this, or maybe you shouldn't do that anymore, or I think you should do this. They ask me difficult questions that I need to go and pray about as well. So for me, it's definitely getting away from phone, getting away from busyness, getting away from daily, even just kind of the interruption of our routine. So it's almost impossible to take a retreat at home, because you're just doing the same old thing you used to. You're eating the same sandwich you used to. You're drinking the same coffee. Even just drinking someone else's coffee at a retreat center, however good or bad it is, gets you thinking and looking at things differently, looking at a different crucifix, for goodness sakes, or looking, Broomtree has a beautiful retreat center, going on a walk at Broomtree, just looking at different stuff can get us out of our rut sometimes and getting us thinking about different stuff. Are there, so with that being said, just getting away. I mean, that's one of the, words that holiness means, right? You're set apart,
Yes.
To become more holy, you become more set apart.
Yes.
And, oftentimes, Christians might get this, like, the culture is bad and, we're in a battle with culture. And without going on retreat, you just don't see it sometimes. We're not living in a Christendom world where I'm being built up by media and my neighbors and everything else. They're not encouraging me to sacrifice my life for my wife and my family. They're not encouraging me to go pray. They're not encouraging me to love Jesus. So I have to get out of that. That's kind of the battle we're fighting, because we're human. We're going to get taken. We're going to go down that river and we're going to bump into, like, my image of the St. Croix is the bluffs, actually, especially like Taylor's Falls. You go there and you're going to bang around. It's like going down a river without an oar. You're in trouble. I mean, you might get capsized, much less just, it might be a little bumpy, but I'll be fine. That's why I said at the beginning, this all makes sense for a sane person. Mm-hmm. A sane person says, I need an oar and I need a plan of life. I can't just drive around in circles until I run into grandma's house at Christmas. Yeah. I need to think of, like, how am I getting to grandma's house, for goodness sakes? How am I getting to heaven? What's the point of all this stuff?
Yep.
And what's my plan?
Yeah. And, I think, that's so I have the risk of too much information. I have
that's what the podcast is for. Yeah, too much information.
plenty of unhealthy, disordered attachments. Baseball memorabilia, but I am capable of wasting a lot of time trying to find people on the internet who will reinforce all of my beliefs. I really do. I've watched them before, so, on retreat, again, I was able to say, again, in part because I wasn't doing it, right? I'm like, I recognize, that takes, and I know that, but I don't do anything, hadn't done anything about it, because I'd recognize it and feel guilty for a minute, then I get distracted, and then I come back the next day, and it's like you're constantly starting over. As soon as I start to feel the guilt that is uncomfortable, that might cause me to feel like I need to do something about it, I get distracted by something else, and then in retreat, to get away from it and recognize that is taking a disproportionate amount of my time, which is essentially wasted time, and I'm clearly surviving without doing it, and I'm not like I haven't found myself in the depths of depression because it was taken away from me either. So it's not necessary. And where could I be investing that time? For me, I have some language skills that I'm trying to build, and languages, or even just one. I would like to do more than one, but languages take time and effort and energy. So, and it's much more enjoyable to listen to people who think like me and tell me that I'm right about my worldview. But if I really want to make a positive contribution, and as I see it in our world, which includes bridging different cultures and ways of thinking, communication is significant, and language is one of my obstacles. So to recognize some of these unhealthy attachments that I have, and the disproportionate time and energy, and to be able to redirect those to something that's going to be productive, there's a lot of good, I think, that can come from those things.
Yeah, one of the things you said as well is you kind of get in a rut of doing, you watch a YouTube video and you get distracted, and then you come back to it and you get distracted. The nice thing about a retreat is you can take away those distractions, and you kind of have a time frame for it. Like, okay, for these 3 days, I'm going to not do it. When at home, it's like, well, am I either going to never do this again, or am I going to just not do it today? And it just doesn't have the same effect. You can say, like, I'm going to do this for 3 days, get rid of it, and pray about it and think about it and see what effect it has. And in my head, it's kind of like getting rid of something in your diet. Like for me, at least, getting rid of sugar. I'm very sensitive to sugar. We probably all are, but I'm very sensitive to sugar, but I didn't know it until I stopped eating sugar.
Sure.
I thought I was fine. Like I didn't think it really affected me as much. I've always had a difficulty with like hard candies and stuff. I get headaches. And until you get away from it, and then you go back, and then you're like, oh, whoa. And so I get away from sugar for a month or two, and then I had like a sip of Mountain Dew, and I almost immediately had a headache. Whoa. And it was like, oh, man, And the idea of like not having that Mountain Dew when you're not getting away from it is like, oh, no big deal. Like it's not even affecting me. It's not bringing me down. It's not making me tired. It's not making me irritable. I'm fine. But then you get away, and then you come back, and you're like, oh, that was crushing me, actually. And I think that's the same thing for me, at least spiritually. I don't want to say this is for everyone, but it probably is. I need to get away from the stuff that's crushing me and giving me migraines and giving me headaches, like spiritual headaches. Like this is not healthy for me. And Father Erickson and I talked about this before. Like, how do we help people realize we are in need of Jesus? We're desperately in need of Jesus, and we keep ourselves distracted, and we don't think we need him that much. Like, oh, I'm fine. I'm kind of fine. I'm kind of fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. Father, I'm fine. Father, I'm fine.
Yeah,
but then you get away from all the garbage, and you realize, I'm not fine. I'm not okay. My life was crazy.
Yeah.
And I was just distracting myself.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the world of addictions too. I'm just stuck in this addiction because I started using it as a distraction. And I really need to get away, and I can't be distracted from Jesus. And I need to realize I'm in desperate need of him. And when we live in the world without a retreat, I'm fine. Yeah. I can order whatever I want off of Amazon. It's going to be here in 2 days, and it's going to make me feel comfortable, and it's going to make me feel good. Or I can just have that drink tomorrow night, and I'll be fine. And I don't have to think about the difficulties, whatever else is happening in my life. And the retreat is kind of that spiritual detox to get away and say, I really need you, Jesus. I mean, that's been a huge thing for me on Ignatian retreats. That's part of the biggest part of an Ignatian retreat is to realize my need for Jesus. I'm a desperate sinner, and I can distract myself and be persuaded and brought down the river of garbage forever, or I can get out of the stupid river, or I can get a oar. And I don't realize that unless I get away. I have to stop shoving sugar down my face in order to realize it's not good for me.
Yeah, you get the retreat provides you a different perspective. We touched on the river a bit, and the St. Croix. I had been in Stillwater for 5 years, and so I certainly saw the St. Croix a lot from the the shore of either side, and but then, and I'm not much of an outdoorsman. One day I did find myself in a canoe or a something.
I found
like
myself in a canoe.
and then I thought, to be on the river, the perspective is so different. It looks very different to see the bluffs on both sides, because you just don't see the bluffs from the road. I'm more of a driving on the road guy than a in the canoe water guy. So, but wow, I really never saw the St. Croix from this perspective. It's beautiful, and it's different, and even though it's like the same thing. And I think retreats give us a valuable perspective that we're just not capable of having when we're living our day-to-day lives. The video stuff and the memorabilia, those are unfortunate habits, addictions, and they're bad, but the realization that was more of I would say a more deeply come to Jesus moment was in the giving myself time and space and allowing things to bubble up, and also almost certainly based on some of the input I was getting from prayer and from conferences, was that I had recognized a couple relationships where I had been really harsh, and maybe not harsh as the world, not violent, but spiritually harsh with a couple of people, one in particular, and to really allow myself to be with that, and to honestly, and allow myself to feel badly about that, and to repent of that, and to recognize that this Jesus has put this person in my life, and in a certain sense, when I am how I treat this person, I'm treating Jesus, and to really repent of that, and to try to make some amends. And so, it's you had talked about our need for Jesus, and it was in that particular experience of my own sinfulness, recognition of my own sinfulness, that more so probably than with the other things, I really recognized my need for Jesus in that relationship.
Yeah, it's certainly good to just be able to go deeper into certain things, relationships and whatnot, and to allow the Lord to speak to them. And I just find it almost impossible to do that. Even with an hour of prayer every day, it's still like, half the time I'm thinking about other stuff, to be honest, or half the time it takes me half hour to calm down,
Sure,
or
yeah.
I'm thinking of other things, or things distract me. And that might happen at the beginning of your retreat, but in the middle, when you've gotten plenty of sleep and you're not tired, and there's no cause for distraction, it's a lot harder to just avoid those things. So it is essential, maybe before we get into like the practical stuff and close this out, are there other kind of final thoughts on, the benefits of retreat?
Well, no, I think the what I'd like to wrap up with is that we will all be looking for the silver bullet, the magic pill, and our technology leads us to more and more believe that there's always something that will do, but some things just require time, and some things we recognize, like your children, for me, my nieces and nephews, they're going it's gonna take 10 years for my nephew Tommy to go from being 5 to being 15. There's nothing that you can do to accelerate that process, right? Some things just take time, and I think that these spiritual things we can think, oh, there's got to be a shortcut, but some of these exercises, they really do require time. I think the Ignatian retreat,
That's probably why it's called the spiritual exercises, huh?
Yeah.
You gotta exercise. It's a daily thing, and I think Ignatius would say, it has to be a habit too. That's why he has in it those rules, and also the daily examine, to come out of that and say, okay, now I'm going to take this retreat and I'm going to apply it to my daily life.
Yep.
I'm going to look every single day at the end of the day and say, all right, Jesus, thank you. Where were you? Well, how did I avoid you? And how can I do better tomorrow?
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of St. Ignatius, so that there's other ways to do a retreat, obviously. That's just been the one that's been the most beneficial to me, and that has resonated with my own prayer life and spiritual life. So what are the other options for retreat? What would you suggest the dads and moms out there listening to go? How do they sign up? How do they find out about these places?
And this is tricky. So some of it is, I think a principle which I'm kind of surprised that I'm willing to go to is, let's not make the perfect the enemy of the good. I think that I think my audience right now is people who have not gone on a retreat, and
sure.
I think and so I'm hoping that one person that's listening will go from never having made a retreat to going on a retreat. And I'm not sure that it requires that a person, the first one, does a 30-day Ignatian retreat. I think that's probably unlikely, right? I mean, that's so extremely unlikely. We know it's the case. But I think probably that you could choose one that works for your schedule very easy, and for most people I'm thinking that's going to be on a weekend.
Yep.
And so there are certainly retreat centers that offer such weekend retreats. My sense is that typically they'd start Friday after work and end sometime around noon, midday on Sunday, after probably concluding with a mass. So I think that might be a fine start. I don't know that we have to go for the perfect retreat, but to get a taste, overcome some of the initial concerns of just what it's like, what it's like to be at a retreat center. And to have a good and positive experience, and then maybe build from there to do something more challenging, which I think ultimately means more time and more silence.
Yeah.
So I don't know that you have to go for long and silent right away, but to at least get the experience of going to a retreat center. And as I said, I was at Franciscan in Prior Lake, and they offer retreats exclusively for men. They offer retreats exclusively for women, and then of course I was on a mixed, so men and women. But
and there's couples retreats.
Oh yeah,
there's couples retreats out there. There's a place called Pachamenteras up in St. Francis, I think it is, just north of here, maybe 40 minutes or so, and they offer hermitages, so they offer some time, just some time alone. I think it's a very profound spiritual insight when Jeff Cavins gets the question, you're like, Jeff, what Bible should I pick? What Bible should I pick? What's the best translation? And his answer is very profound, and Father reiterated it here, and he says, the one you're going to read.
Yeah.
It's probably best to just go on the retreat that you're going to go on.
Yeah.
Like, that's the easiest to get out and just do it. And, I don't have any places that I would say like, oh, avoid this place. It's the
admittedly, to know ourselves is I would say I'm not a Pacham guy without even trying. That's a little rustic for me.
Mm-hmm. They are just hermitages with like an outhouse.
Yeah, so I could do that, but I'd rather not do that. So I'm more likely to sign up for a place like Franciscan or de Montreville. De Montreville, I think, does exclusively men.
Yeah.
So,
and I would suggest don't just go to Pacham. By the way, I'm not saying just go into the woods and go hunting and call that your retreat. If you're going to go to Pacham, tell your priest and say, "Can I meet with you for a half hour or hour after my retreat and talk about some of the things that have happened?" I think some form of direction is almost essential. You can't just go out there on your own. I haven't found a lot of benefit in just doing my own thing, navel gazing for a weekend, or my own garbage gets in the way, and I don't know what the heck I'm doing anyway. It's like the blind leading the blind. I feel like I'm just lost in a cave after the week. But to have some form of spiritual direction afterwards or during is good. And then, like Father said, some of them are preached or directed, and some of them also are like that with the couples retreats. They're going to have like a theme, of connecting or whatever else their theme is going to be. So you go on the retreat that you can go on. That's going to work for you. If you got to get rid of the kids, obviously. But if you can't go on a couples retreat, go on, trade-offs. Tell your wife, like, I would like you to go on a retreat, in a month or two or whatever. For me, I actually gift that to my wife for like birthdays and, as a gift.
Yeah,
so, like,
that's beautiful.
I'm going to take Teresa for the whole weekend, and I'm going to allow you to go on a retreat. And she can do the same thing for me. And you can do that, husband and wife,
Yeah.
I love you, and I know that you need to get away from all of us for the weekend, and don't worry about it. I got it taken care of, Yep. And you can do this with however many kids you got. I'll babysit your kids if you really need to get away and you got 20 kids running around, okay? I'll babysit half of them, okay? But if you need to get away, trade off. Husband goes this weekend, wife goes that weekend, and you can have a fun little plan with your kids that other, the opposite weekend. So you're going to have to make a little sacrifice because you're going to have to give some stuff up. I do highly recommend no technology on your retreat, even if maybe you need to just like give your phone to your wife, on your retreat, or shut it off or give it to the director. I don't know what yours was like. They just kind of like let you do whatever.
Yeah. At Franciscan, they let you do whatever, but they certainly encouraged that. Not.
Even if you're getting junk mail, you can get sucked into junk mail too, and ESPN or whatever else you got. Games,
I realized, among the many things I realized, is how draining and consuming email is. It just really is just just so much time and energy taken, and to have all that time freed up on. It's no wonder I'm telling you that you can make spiritual progress on a retreat when all the time and energy of email has been freed up. It's really significant.
And just tell your work or whoever, I'm gone.
Yeah, they got that office reply, automatic reply thing feature.
I'm on retreat so I can be a better person.
Yeah.
Peace out.
Nice.
Any final encouragements or thoughts or words of wisdom for that person that's like, Father, that sounds fine, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's it's clearly something that you need to come to truly believe that it's worth your while, and it could come different ways. You could recognize in some of the good that Justin and I have tried to share, and say, I'm attracted to that good, and I want to. I mean, I wish that people knew the lives of the saints better, but you don't have saints who don't. Saints do this. People that are holy go on retreat.
And Jesus did it too, right?
Jesus did
I mean, for goodness sakes.
Yes.
He's like, hey, guys, I'm out for a couple hours at least.
Oh, yeah.
I have to go be with the Father.
Yeah. Or you can have an experience of your sinfulness and say, this is not working. What I'm doing is not working, and maybe that will encourage you to want that for yourselves and for your family. I don't think I can overstate that the people that depend on you deserve that you get your act together, and a lot of that getting your act together work is only, I believe is only going to happen if you take the time and energy to make it happen.
Amen. I am very thankful that you went on retreat,
thanks.
Father Lynch, for your own sake and for my sake.
Thank
I think
you.
I think it's a courageous thing to do, because it's not easy. It's very easy to just say I'm fine.
I'm good.
I'm good. Like when we went door to door this week and said, "Hey, do you want any prayers?" No, I'm good. That's what our culture is saying right now.
Yep,
no,
good.
I'm good. No,
You're good. I'm good.
I don't need any prayers.
Nope.
I don't need Jesus. I don't need nothing. But I think if we really take even just a minute and think about what's happening in our own lives, we need it. We need a lot of prayers, and we need a roadmap, and we need some guidance in our life. And I think that's just some of what a retreat can help us achieve: a map, some guidance, some vision, some peace, for goodness sakes, getting away from all the busyness. There's so many benefits. And you know what? You can go for runs and walks on your retreat too.
Yeah, and I would say for practical reasons, if you can find a buddy to do it with or something, especially your first time. I'm not sure that's at a more advanced level. That's now I'm maybe this isn't the best language, but for your first retreat, I would, again, let's not make the perfect the enemy of the good enough. Just maybe find a friend who will go with you, so that there's some comfort in having that first experience, and see where it goes from there. That is likely to help too.
Amen. Go on a retreat. Retreat is not defeat.
Retreat is not defeat. Retreat is not defeat. Retreat is not defeat.
All right, Father, would you give us your extremely holy and pious blessing now that you've gone on retreat? I'm sure there's some super wise words you want to share with all of us before we go on we make a resolution to go on a retreat.
Okay, yeah. Well, we're asking a little bit, and to put that into context, today we're recording this. Can I say when we're recording it?
Oh yeah.
So we're on October 1st, the feast of Saint Therese the Little Flower, who was a Carmelite nun. She lived in a cloister. All she did was, in a certain sense, she was always on retreat.
She lived in retreat.
She was a living retreat.
Holiness, yep. She
achieved great heights of sanctity, love for Jesus in very ordinary circumstances, and I think that that we will benefit from just this really tiny fraction of our lives being dedicated to God in such a prayerful and intentional way. So through the intercession of Saint Therese, the little flower, may Almighty God bless you, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen. Thanks, Father. God bless.
Thank you.